All right, so today we're diving into something I'm sure like a lot of people, you're kind of interested in, improving your small talk skills.
Yeah.
And we're gonna we're cracking open small talk hacks
Oh, cool.
by Akash Karia today.
All right.
And this book is really cool.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of great advice.
Okay.
It's got, actionable techniques to help you feel more comfortable and confident, striking up conversations with people.
Yeah. That's great.
Making those first encounters really count, leaving a positive impression.
For sure.
So I'm really excited to get into this.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us can benefit from brushing up on our small talk skills, for sure.
Absolutely.
One of the things that's really interesting about this book is it doesn't just offer like superficial advice.
Right.
It really delves into the psychology behind making a great first impression.
I like that.
And helping you understand why certain techniques work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not just about like, do this and this will happen. It's like, here's why this actually has an effect.
Absolutely. And it all starts with those crucial, first few seconds.
Yeah, those first few seconds are so critical.
And I was blown away to learn that studies at Princeton
Oh,
show that people size you up in just a tenth of a second.
wow.
A tenth.
That's nothing.
That's barely a blink.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is incredible.
How quickly those initial judgments form. And unfortunately, they often stick. But the good news is that you actually have a lot of control over how you're perceived.
I like that.
In those initial moments.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
So that's where I think Carrie's nonverbal hacks come in.
Right.
And one of the things that really resonated with me was choosing to be enthusiastic. He argues that it's not about faking it. It's about really like intentionally shifting your energy.
Yeah, and I think there's actually science behind that.
Oh, interesting.
The idea of like emotional contagion suggests that emotions can actually spread from person to person.
I can see that.
Like, think about how you feel when someone greets you with like genuine warmth and excitement.
It's contagious.
It's almost impossible not to mirror that energy back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that experience.
Right.
So like if I'm heading into like a networking event and I'm feeling a bit awkward, I can actually choose to like amp up my enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And that might actually influence how others perceive me.
Absolutely.
But wouldn't that feel inauthentic though?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
I think the key is finding that balance.
Okay.
Right? It's not about putting on a phony act.
Oh.
It's more about tapping into like genuine excitement about the possibility of, meeting interesting people, having stimulating conversations.
So I'm going in with that intention.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. I'm starting to see how that could work.
Yeah.
What are some other nonverbal cues that can make a difference?
Well, Korea talks a lot about the impact of posture.
Oh, posture. Okay.
Yeah.
Like how you're standing?
Exactly.
Okay.
You might have heard about Amy Cuddy's research on power posing. And while there's been debate around the replicability of some of her findings, the core idea is that standing or sitting in a confident posture can not only make you look more confident, but also potentially affect your internal state by influencing hormone levels.
Interesting.
So it's like a mind-body connection.
Okay, so even if the science isn't totally settled, there's still something to be said for that psychological impact.
Absolutely.
Of like striking a confident pose.
I think so.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a placebo effect,
it
can still be beneficial.
I buy it.
The book suggests practicing power poses for a few minutes before an event.
Oh, I like that.
Just to kind of get yourself...
Get in the zone.
And in the right headspace.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be trying that. And while we're talking about, projecting confidence, we can't forget about the power of a smile.
Oh, yes, the universal language of friendliness.
Right.
Korea takes this a step further, though.
Okay.
Highlighting some fascinating research.
Okay.
Did you know that a genuine smile has been shown to be as stimulating as 2,000 chocolate bars?
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's a mood booster.
Right.
I can get behind.
But on a more scientific level.
Yeah, what's going on there?
It's thought to be linked to the release of endorphins, which have mood-boosting and pain-relieving effects.
Oh.
Plus, a smile triggers those fascinating mirror neurons in others, causing them to instinctively smile back.
Interesting.
It creates like a positive feedback loop of good vibes.
I like that.
Right.
Okay, so it's not just about,
It's not just politeness.
Yeah, being polite.
It's about setting off this chain reaction of positivity.
I like it, all right.
Right.
Speaking of connection, what about eye contact?
Eye contact is huge. It conveys engagement interest.
Right.
There's even a study where prolonged eye contact between strangers led to feelings of love.
Oh, wow.
Of course, we're not talking about staring contests here.
Right, you don't want to creep people out.
Right.
So what's the sweet spot then for eye contact?
I think it's about finding a balance.
Okay.
You want to maintain eye contact long enough to convey interest, but not so long that it becomes uncomfortable.
Right.
It's also important to pay attention to the other person's cues.
Okay.
If they seem uncomfortable, you can briefly break eye contact and then re-engage.
Gotcha.
So it's a bit of a dance.
Yeah, it's like reading the other person's signals.
Exactly.
Adjusting accordingly.
Yeah.
So we've got the smiling, we've got the posture, we've got the eye contact.
Right.
But here's one you might not expect.
Okay.
The book highlights the importance of clothing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So is this about like dressing to impress, or is there something deeper going on?
It's more about how your clothing choices impact other people's perceptions. There's this fascinating anecdote in the book about a study where people judged a man in a tailored suit more favorably than a man in a similar but off-the-rack suit.
Interesting.
Even though they weren't consciously focusing on his clothes.
So it's like our clothing choices are sending these subtle messages about our personality and our character.
Yeah, even if people aren't consciously aware of it.
Okay. That's really fascinating.
It's something to think about.
Yeah. I'm going to have to pay more attention to that now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got those first impressions covered.
Right.
But for a lot of people, I think the hardest part is actually breaking the ice.
Yeah.
And starting a conversation.
It can be so daunting.
Especially, if you're naturally introverted.
Especially for us introverts.
Yeah, so that's where having, a few go-to techniques can really, I think, help boost your confidence.
For sure.
And the book offers like a whole arsenal of these icebreakers. Starting with a really simple one, using your surroundings as a springboard.
Oh, that's smart.
So instead of like racking my brain for like a witty opening line,
right,
I can just look around and find inspiration.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you're at a conference, you could ask someone, have you attended this session before?
Yeah.
Or comment on the speaker's presentation.
Oh, that's easy.
It's about finding common ground in your shared experience.
Right. I like that it feels more organic.
It does.
Than trying to force like a random topic.
Yeah.
What are some other icebreakers that resonated with you?
Well, Karia is a huge advocate for being up to date on current events.
Oh, is that a good one?
He suggests subscribing to newsletters.
Okay.
Like Business Insider, for example, for bite-sized news updates.
Right.
It's a great way to stay informed.
And have relevant conversation starters.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
Especially in professional settings.
Especially being able to comment on a recent industry development or news story can show that you're engaged and informed.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got using our surroundings, we've got current events. What are some other techniques to get those conversations rolling?
Well, this might sound obvious.
Okay.
But mastering the art of asking
questions
and genuinely listening is so crucial.
Right. So it's not just about like peppering someone with questions.
Right.
It's about actually wanting to hear the answers.
It is. Yeah. This ties into active listening,
right,
which we'll get into later.
Yeah.
When you ask open-ended questions and truly listen to the answers, it shows that you're genuinely interested in the other person.
I like that it shifts the focus away from like trying to be clever or witty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about connecting.
Towards actually connecting with the other person.
Right.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And sometimes the simplest approach is the best.
Okay.
Karia reminds us that even just saying hello and introducing yourself can be enough to spark a conversation. That's reassuring.
Right.
Takes the pressure off.
Yeah. You don't have to have this brilliant opening line.
Right, exactly.
Right.
I think sometimes we overthink those things.
We do.
Yeah.
And we psych ourselves out.
Absolutely.
And then we don't even approach anyone.
Yeah.
So just keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple. Just say hi.
Hello.
And don't underestimate the power of compliments.
Oh, compliments are great.
Karia suggests, praising a speaker after their presentation or thanking someone for their time.
Right.
It's a simple way to acknowledge and appreciate someone.
Yeah.
Which can open the door to further conversation.
That's a nice gesture.
That's a great reminder.
Yeah.
Because, genuine compliments can go a long way in making someone feel good.
They can.
And creating a positive atmosphere.
Absolutely.
And another technique Karia suggests is soliciting opinions.
Oh, that's a good one.
You could ask someone about their thoughts on the event, a current issue in your industry,
Right.
or even feedback on a project.
Oh, that's smart.
That's clever, right?
It is.
Because it makes the other person feel like their insights are valued.
Absolutely.
And it positions you as someone who's genuinely interested in learning from others.
Yeah, you're showing that you value their opinion.
Exactly.
Right.
And finally, if you're in a business context,
Yeah.
the book mentions offering a free product or sample.
Oh, yeah.
As a conversation starter.
That's a classic.
But there's a caveat.
There's always a caveat.
What's the catch?
It's all about being appropriate and authentic.
Right.
You don't want to come across as pushy.
Right.
Or like you're just trying to make a sale.
Yeah.
It's about gauging the situation.
Okay.
And finding a natural way to introduce your product or service without forcing it.
So it's about building that rapport.
It is.
And trust.
Absolutely.
Not just bombarding people with a sales pitch.
No one wants to feel like you're being sold to right away.
Right, exactly.
That's fair.
Okay. So we've talked about breaking the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's kind of get into the heart of a conversation.
Okay.
And talk about active listening.
All right.
Karia emphasizes that this is your secret weapon for taking conversations to the next level.
Interesting.
We've touched on it briefly.
Yeah.
But I'm eager to kind of dive deeper.
Okay, let's do it.
What makes active listening so powerful?
Well, it's about going beyond just hearing the words someone is saying.
Okay.
It's about being fully present, engaged, and genuinely trying to understand their perspective.
Right.
It's about making the other person feel heard and valued.
And I'm guessing those nonverbal cues we discussed earlier.
They come into play here big time.
They come into play here as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Eye contact, nodding, smiling.
Right.
All of these signal that you're paying attention and interested. However, it's so crucial to read the other person's cues.
Right.
You don't want to be like robotically nodding along if they're sharing something serious or personal.
Right.
So you want to be authentic in your reaction.
Yes, be responsive.
Yeah.
So besides the nonverbal cues, what else can we do to show that we're actively listening?
Good question. One of the most effective active listening techniques is reflecting and restating. So it's about paraphrasing what the other person has said to demonstrate that you're not just hearing them, you're truly understanding their point of view.
Oh, okay. So instead of just nodding along, I might say something like, it sounds like you were really frustrated by how that meeting went.
Exactly. You're grasping the emotions behind their words. And this can be especially helpful in situations where there's tension.
Yeah.
It validates the other person's feelings and can help kind of de-escalate things.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Karia also suggests asking clarifying questions.
Okay.
Instead of assuming you know what someone means, ask questions to ensure you're on the same page.
So instead of just saying, that's interesting, I might ask, can you tell me more about what led to that decision?
Precisely, you're showing that you're genuinely curious and engaged in the conversation.
Right.
And of course, minimizing distractions is key.
Ah, yes.
Put away your phone, close your laptop, and give the other person your full attention. It's a small gesture, but it speaks volumes about your respect for them in the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to get distracted these days.
It is.
With our phones and everything.
It's like second nature to just reach for our phones.
Right.
But yeah, putting those devices away sends a really clear message that you're prioritizing the person in front of you.
All right. So minimize distractions.
Minimize distractions.
Got it.
Let's talk about a few other conversation pitfalls to avoid.
Okay.
One that we all probably recognize is interrupting.
Oh, yeah.
It can be so tempting to jump in with our own thoughts.
Yeah, you get excited.
Right, but it's so crucial to let the other person finish their train of thought.
I know. I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes.
We all are.
But yeah, interrupting can make the other person feel like they're not being heard or respected.
Exactly. And here's an interesting perspective from the book. Don't be afraid to embrace the pause.
Okay.
It's natural to want to fill every silence.
Right. It gets awkward.
But pausing before responding can actually be a sign of thoughtfulness.
Yeah, instead of viewing those silences as awkward, I can see them as opportunities to really consider what the other person has said exactly for responding.
It shows that you're not just waiting for your turn to speak, you're actually taking the time to process the information and formulate a thoughtful response.
I like that shift in perspective.
Good.
And speaking of processing information, I know we've all had those moments where our minds wander during a conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Even when we're trying to be attentive.
Happens to the best of us.
So what do you do when you realize your mind has drifted?
The book offers a really helpful tip for that.
Okay.
Mentally repeat what the other person is saying to yourself.
Oh, that's actually a good idea.
It's like giving your brain a little nudge to get back on track.
I like it. It's a practical strategy.
It is. It can help you stay present and engaged, even if your thoughts momentarily stray.
Okay, so refocus. If you find yourself drifting off.
Absolutely.
All of these active listening techniques are great, but let's be honest, some conversations are just plain boring.
Yeah, sometimes you get stuck talking to someone
Yeah.
and it's just not clicking.
What do you do when you're in that situation?
It happens. Not every conversation is going to be a sparkling exchange of brilliant ideas.
Right.
But there are ways to handle these situations gracefully.
Okay.
Sometimes you can try to gently steer the conversation in a new direction. Remember those conversation starters we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Hobbies, local events, professional happenings.
Right.
These can all be useful for breathing new life into a stale conversation.
So if it starts to feel like it's fading, I can subtly try to pivot
Exactly.
to a topic that might be more engaging.
Or you can simply shift the focus back to the other person. Ask them about their interests, their work, their weekend plans, anything that might spark a more animated discussion.
So be observant and look for those opportunities to connect on a deeper level.
Exactly. No, even with the best conversation skills, there will be times when you need to end a conversation.
Right.
And knowing how to do that gracefully is just as important as knowing how to start one.
Yeah, sometimes it feels awkward trying to extract yourself from a conversation
It can be.
without seeming rude.
It's all about finding that balance between being polite and signaling that it's time to move on.
Okay.
Karia suggests being mindful of natural ending points in the conversation.
Okay.
If there's a lull or you've thoroughly covered a particular topic, that might be a good time to start wrapping things up.
Okay, so use those natural pauses as cues.
Exactly. And when you're ready to end the conversation, be direct but polite. You can say something like, "It was so nice chatting with you, but I promised myself I'd catch up with a few other people."
Okay.
Or, "I'm going to grab another drink, but it was great meeting you."
Clear, concise, and still friendly.
And don't forget to reiterate something positive from the conversation.
Oh, that's nice.
You could say, "I really enjoyed hearing about your work on that project," or, "Thanks for the book recommendation. I'm definitely going to check it out."
That's a great way to leave it on a positive note.
It is.
And reinforce that you were genuinely listening and engaged.
Exactly. And if it feels appropriate, you can even suggest staying connected.
Okay.
You could say, "Let's exchange contact information," or, "I'd love to hear more about your work sometime."
So leave that door open.
Exactly, without feeling obligated to force it.
Right.
So we've covered breaking the ice, keeping conversations flowing, and exiting gracefully.
Yeah, this has been really helpful.
I've been glad.
Now I'm really curious to delve into how to move beyond superficial small talk and build more meaningful connections.
Okay, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Karia dedicates a whole chapter to the concept of moving from introduction to intimacy.
Ooh, intimacy.
And before you jump to conclusions, it's not about getting overly personal or touchy-feely.
Okay.
It's about cultivating a sense of closeness and trust that can lead to deeper, more fulfilling relationships.
Okay, so how do we take those initial interactions to that next level?
It starts with what Karia calls invite approach. Remember all those nonverbal cues we discussed?
Yes.
They play a huge role here. It's about creating a welcoming and approachable vibe that encourages people to open up.
Right.
He even suggests practicing those postures and expressions in front of a mirror.
Oh, interesting.
So they feel natural and effortless when you're out in the world.
I like that idea. It's like giving yourself a mini confidence boost
It is.
before heading into a social situation.
Exactly. It's about consciously shifting your energy from closed off to open and inviting. And another important principle for building intimacy is avoiding judgment.
So resisting the urge to make snap decisions about people.
Yeah, based on first impressions.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Karia encourages us to approach each person as a discovery waiting to happen.
I like that.
You never know what fascinating stories or insights someone might share if we give them the chance.
It's about approaching each interaction with curiosity and an open mind.
Exactly, rather than preconceived notions.
Yeah, and this ties into another crucial element for building intimacy, authenticity.
Oh, yeah.
Being genuine. Karia emphasizes the importance of being genuine and letting our true selves shine through.
Right.
So trying to be someone we're not is a recipe for disaster.
It can be, people can sense when we're being inauthentic, and it creates a barrier to connection.
Makes sense when we're being ourselves. We give others permission to do the same.
Exactly.
It creates a more relaxed and genuine atmosphere.
Absolutely. Karia shares a personal anecdote about how he shifted his focus in his work from prioritizing sales to prioritizing relationships.
Interesting.
He found that when he focused on building genuine connections with people, the sales naturally followed.
So it's about building those relationships first.
It is.
And then the rest will follow.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's a good lesson for life in general.
And speaking of building trust, the book highlights the importance of asking for help.
Oh, that's a good one.
Karia explains how asking for assistance can actually strengthen relationships.
Yeah.
Because it shows vulnerability and trust in the other person's expertise.
It makes them feel valued.
So instead of trying to do everything ourselves, we should actively seek out opportunities to ask for help.
Yeah, it demonstrates humility and a willingness to learn from others.
Right. And it's not just about receiving help, it's also about offering it.
Oh, for sure.
What's a good way to offer help without seeming intrusive and presumptuous?
Karia suggests a simple but powerful question. What can I do to support you?
Oh, I like that.
It shows that you're invested in the other person's well-being and willing to lend a hand.
It shifts the focus from what you can get to what you can give.
Exactly.
Which is a really powerful way to build trust and rapport.
Absolutely. And another tip for deepening those connections, don't be afraid to get personal.
Ooh, getting personal.
Now I know what you're thinking.
Okay.
But it's not about revealing your deepest, darkest secrets to a stranger.
Right.
It's more about finding those opportunities to share anecdotes or experiences that can create a sense of shared humanity and connection.
Okay, so if someone is talking about their love of travel, I might share a story about a memorable trip I took.
Exactly. It's about finding those commonalities and using them to build rapport. And here's a concept from the book that really fascinated me, venturing into personal questions.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Karia cites a study by psychologist Arthur Aronin,
Right.
in which pairs of strangers were asked to ask each other increasingly personal questions over a 45-minute period.
Wow, that's getting personal fast.
And the pairs who engaged in those deeper, more personal conversations felt significantly closer and more connected
Makes sense.
than those who stuck to superficial small talk. And the key takeaway is that how you respond to someone's personal disclosure is even more important than how much they disclose.
That's interesting.
It's about creating a space for vulnerability and showing that you value their willingness to open up.
So if someone shares something personal with me, I want to make sure I'm responding in a way that makes them feel safe, heard, and understood.
Exactly. Now, even as we strive to build those deeper connections, it's important to remember that it's okay to have different opinions.
Right.
Karia emphasizes the importance of being able to agree to disagree respectfully.
So it's okay to engage in friendly debate, even in those early stages of getting to know someone.
Absolutely. In fact, Karia highlights research by Dan O'Reilly showing that controversial topics can actually lead to more interesting and engaging conversations
Oh, that's interesting.
than bland, safe ones.
So a little bit of respectful disagreement can actually be a good thing.
It can, as long as it's done with mutual respect and a willingness to understand the other person's perspective.
Right.
It's about having a healthy exchange of ideas, not trying to win an argument.
I appreciate that reminder because it's easy to get caught up and try to prove our point.
Yeah.
But ultimately, building bridges is more valuable than building walls.
Well said. And sometimes it's okay to simply agree to disagree.
Right.
Not every conversation has to end with everyone on the same page.
That's a good point. It's about respecting each other's right to have different opinions.
Absolutely. And lastly, when it comes to building lasting connections, Karia stresses the importance of letting friendships flow naturally.
Oh, that's good advice.
So no need to rush things or force a connection.
Right.
It's about being patient, respecting boundaries, and allowing those relationships to develop at their own pace.
That's a great reminder.
Yeah, we can't control how other people respond to us, but we can control how we show up in the world and in our interactions.
When we focus on being authentic, approachable, and genuinely interested in others, we create the best possible conditions for those meaningful connections to blossom.
Well said. I love that perspective. It's about creating fertile ground and letting nature take its course.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about some common conversational pitfalls, those things we want to avoid if we want to make a good impression and keep those conversations flowing smoothly.
Okay, sounds good.
What are some of those conversational landmines we need to watch out for?
Well, we've already touched on a few, like monopolizing the conversation, interrupting, and being overly negative.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
But Karia dives deeper into these traps and offers specific strategies for avoiding them.
Okay, I'm ready to take notes.
So let's start with monopolizing facts. Karia uses a brilliant analogy of the tennis match.
Okay.
He says a good conversation is like a rally with each person hitting the ball back and forth.
I like that.
But when one person hogs the court, the game quickly becomes boring and one-sided.
Right. No one wants to feel like they're being lectured or talked at.
Exactly. It's about creating a balanced exchange where everyone feels heard and valued.
Absolutely. And a helpful tip for avoiding that trap is to be mindful of how much you're talking versus how much you're listening.
Right.
A good rule of thumb is to aim for a roughly equal balance.
Yeah. Find that sweet spot.
Between contributing to the conversation and also giving the other person space to share their thoughts and experiences.
And remember those active listening techniques we talked about? They can really help you stay engaged and avoid dominating the conversation.
Okay, so monopolizing bad active listening, good. What's the next conversation killer?
Forcing your opinions on others.
Oh, yeah.
We all have our own beliefs and perspectives, but it's crucial to share them in a way that's respectful and open-minded.
Right. No one likes to feel like they're being attacked or belittled for their views.
And Karia makes an important distinction. There's a difference between sharing your opinion and forcing it on someone. You can express your perspective without trying to convince the other person that they're wrong.
Okay, so it's about presenting your viewpoint as one valid perspective among many rather than the ultimate truth.
Exactly. And it's also about being open to listening to and considering other perspectives even if you don't agree with them.
So fostering a respectful dialogue rather than trying to win an argument.
Exactly. And sometimes it's okay to simply agree to disagree. Not every conversation has to end with everyone on the same page.
I think that's important to remember.
It's about respecting each other's right to have different opinions. What's the next conversational pitfall to avoid?
Well, we touched on this earlier, but it's worth emphasizing negativity.
Oh, yeah.
Karia dedicates a significant portion of the book to highlighting the importance of staying positive,
Right.
both in our words and our overall demeanor.
It makes the big difference.
I can definitely see how negativity can be a conversation killer. But what if you're having a bad day?
Yeah.
Are you supposed to pretend everything is sunshine and roses even when it's not?
That's a great question. The book acknowledges that it's not about denying our feelings
Right.
or putting on a fake happy face.
Yeah.
It's about choosing to focus on the positive,
Okay.
even amidst challenges.
So finding that silver lining.
Exactly. And it's also about being mindful of how our negativity impacts others.
Right. No one wants to be around a constant complainer.
No one wants to be an Eeyore.
Right.
Negativity can be contagious.
Yeah, it can bring everyone down.
When we focus on the negative, it can create a downward spiral. But when we choose to focus on the positive, it can have the opposite effect, uplifting those around us and creating a more enjoyable experience for everyone.
So be a source of light rather than darkness.
Exactly. And it's not about pretending that everything is perfect. It's about choosing to focus on the good.
So finding those things to be grateful for.
Precisely, even when things are challenging. And it's about being solution-oriented rather than dwelling on problems.
So instead of complaining about a problem, we can brainstorm ways to solve it.
Exactly. It's about taking a proactive approach rather than wallowing in negativity.
I like that it's about empowering ourselves and those around us.
Absolutely. So we've talked about avoiding negativity. What's the next conversational no-no?
Let me guess, profanity.
Yeah, he gets it. This one might seem obvious, but it's worth repeating. Be mindful of your language, especially in professional settings.
Right. It can be off-putting to some people.
It can.
And it's generally not considered appropriate in a professional context.
Exactly. And even in more casual settings, it's still a good idea to be mindful of your language.
Right.
Some people are more sensitive to profanity than others, and it's always better to err on the side of caution.
Okay, so watch the language, especially when you're first getting to know someone.
Exactly. And here's the last conversation killer we'll cover: fishing for compliments.
Yes, the humble brag in disguise.
Precisely. It's that tendency to put ourselves down in the hopes of getting someone to disagree and shower us with praise.
So instead of saying, I'm so bad at this, we should focus on highlighting our strengths and accomplishments.
Yeah.
In a way that feels authentic and confident.
Exactly. It's about owning our awesomeness without being arrogant or boastful.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. And speaking of making mistakes, I'm guessing we're all bound to say or do something awkward or inappropriate at some point.
It happens to the best of us.
Right.
But the book offers some helpful tips for recovering from those social missteps.
Okay, I'm all ears. How do we smooth things over when we've put our foot in our mouth?
The first step is to simply admit your mistake.
So own up to it and apologize.
Exactly. It shows humility and a willingness to take responsibility for your actions. And if you've really offended someone, Ask how you can repair the situation.
Okay.
It demonstrates that you care about their feelings and want to make things right.
So be sincere, apologize, and ask how you can fix things. What else?
Well, this might seem obvious, but learn from your mistake.
Yeah.
Take a moment to reflect on what went wrong and how you can avoid making the same mistake in the future.
So turn those awkward moments into opportunities for growth.
Exactly. We all make mistakes, but it's how we handle them that truly defines us.
I think this is a great place to pause and reflect on what we've learned so far. We've covered so many valuable insights from small talk hacks, from mastering those first impressions to becoming a more active and engaged listener. And we've delved into strategies for navigating those tricky conversational situations.
Yeah.
Both the good and the not so good. Welcome back to our deep dive into small talk hacks.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up, I'm struck by how much emphasis Karia places on the importance of mindset. It's not just about learning techniques. It's about approaching those social interactions with a genuine desire to connect.
I think you've hit on a really crucial point there. It's about shifting our perspective from seeing small talk as a chore to recognizing it as an opportunity to build those meaningful connections.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this book so refreshing.
Yeah.
It's not about mastering those cheesy pickup lines or becoming like a smooth-talking social butterfly.
Right.
It's about using small talk as a springboard to something deeper, more fulfilling.
Yeah.
And speaking of those deeper connections, one of the key takeaways from that chapter on moving from introduction to intimacy really resonated with me. It's that it's not just about how much we disclose about ourselves.
Right.
It's about how we receive what others share with us.
That's so important.
It's huge, right?
Yeah. It is. It's about creating that safe space for vulnerability.
Right.
And showing that we truly value the other person's willingness to open up.
Exactly. And it makes me think about, being a good receiver.
Yes.
Being fully present and receptive when someone's sharing something with us, both verbally and non-verbally.
Right. Making eye contact, nodding, expressing empathy through our words and body language.
So it's not just passively listening to the words.
It's not just about the words.
Yeah. It's actively conveying that we're present and engaged with what the other person's sharing.
Yeah. It's about making the other person feel seen, heard, understood.
I love that it's creating that sense of connection and validation.
Yes.
That can be so powerful in any relationship.
And I remember Karia also talked about focusing on commonalities.
Yes.
As a way to build rapport.
And it's not just about, discovering shared interests or experiences.
Right.
It's also about recognizing those moments of shared humanity. Those universal joys, struggles, and vulnerabilities that connect us all.
We all have them.
Right.
We're all human.
And it makes me think back to that emphasis on authenticity.
Yeah.
Trying to force commonalities or pretend to be someone we're not can actually backfire.
People can sense when we're being inauthentic.
Right.
And it creates a barrier to that genuine connection.
It's so much more powerful to let our true selves shine through.
Absolutely.
When we're authentic, we give others permission to be authentic as well.
Right.
And I think that's a beautiful message to take away from this book.
Yeah.
Small talk isn't about putting on a show or trying to impress people.
Right.
It's about showing up as our genuine selves.
Yes.
And allowing those authentic connections to unfold organically.
I love that.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into small talk hacks, what's one key takeaway you'd like our listener to remember?
I would say this small talk is not just about filling awkward silences.
Right.
It's about connecting with others, building relationships, and ultimately enriching our lives.
And with the right mindset.
Yes.
And a few simple techniques, anyone can become a more confident and engaging conversationalist.
Absolutely.
I love that. So to our listener, I hope you feel equipped and inspired to put these newfound small talk skills into practice.
Go out there and talk to people.
What conversation are you going to start today?